Welcome back to Anderson Acres. Today we're tackling a tough but important subject that every duck owner should know about. Duck viral enteritis, also known as duck plague. It's a frightening disease, highly contagious, and potentially devastating to a flock. Even though it isn't the most fun topic, understanding it is essential to protecting your ducks and preventing heartbreak on your farm. By the end of this video, you'll know what causes it, how it spreads, what signs to watch for, and most importantly, how to protect your flock from it. Because you do want to protect your flock from this one. So what exactly is duck viral enteritis? Okay. The name sounds complicated, but it boils down to a viral infection that causes severe inflammation and bleeding inside a duck's body. It's caused by a herpes virus. Yeah, the same viruses that can cause lifelong infections in humans and animals. Same type. In ducks, geese, and swans, this virus can infect waterfowl at any age, from ducklings to full-grown adults. So it doesn't matter how old your ducks are. And while the name enteritis points to the digestive tract, this virus doesn't stop there. It spreads throughout the body, damaging multiple organs and blood vessels. The scary part is how contagious it is. Ducks can pick it up by coming into direct contact with an infected bird, or even by drinking or swimming in contaminated water. Since ducks love the water, you can easily see how the virus could just move through your flock. And if your ducks have access to wild waterfowl, the risk goes up dramatically because wild birds can carry the virus without showing any of the symptoms. This means they can pass it to your domestic ducks without you realizing it until it's too late. So let's talk a little bit more about how this virus actually spreads. Infected birds shed the virus through their droppings, through their saliva, and sometimes even through lesions inside their mouth. Poor things. Once the virus is in the environment, it can linger. It can survive in contaminated water, on shared equipment, or even on your own boots if you've walked where wild ducks have been. That's why biosecurity, a fancy word for keeping the germs out, is so important when you're raising ducks, or really any animal. Another thing to know is that this virus has what's called a latent phase. That means a duck might get sick, survive the illness, and then carry the virus silently. Later, under stress, like when they're laying heavily, or they're molting, or they're facing a sudden change, or you change the setup in the coop, ducks can be dramatic, but they can suddenly, under all this stress, start shedding that virus again, potentially infecting others. That makes it extra tricky because the flock can look perfectly healthy and still be harboring this virus in the background. So, what should you look for if you're worried about duck viral enteritis in your own flock? Well, symptoms can vary, but there are some classic signs. Ducks might show extreme thirst, drinking much more water than usual. You might see some nasal discharge, watery or even bloody diarrhea, and a general lack of energy. Ducks that usually run to greet you may suddenly hang back, looking weak, depressed, uninterested. Their feathers might appear ruffled and unkempt, and if you keep laying ducks, you might notice a sharp drop in egg production. Unfortunately, one of the most heartbreaking aspects of this disease is sudden death. Ducks can die so quickly that you may not notice any warning signs at all. In some cases, entire groups of ducks may seem fine one day, and then you lose several birds the next. It can happen seemingly out of nowhere. When a veterinarian performs a necropsy, that's basically an animal autopsy, they often find internal bleeding and tissue death in organs like the liver, intestines, and the spleen. It's a devastating thing to see. So now let's pause for a moment and really take in why this disease is so dangerous. It's not just the high mortality rate, though that alone could wipe out your flock. It absolutely could. It's also the fact that this virus is tough. It can persist in the environment for weeks, waiting for the next susceptible duck to come along. Survivors can carry it silently, spreading it again later. And then, like some illnesses, there is no cure for duck viral enteritis. Once the virus is in your birds, there's nothing you can do to make it go away. It's now there. Add in the fact that waterfowl naturally share ponds and creeks and wetlands, and you can see how one infected bird can trigger an outbreak that moves through all of them. In the wild, there have been cases where tens of thousands of ducks have died during migrations because of one virus. On a farm, even a small outbreak can mean the loss of an entire flock in just a few days. It's tragic. So what can we do about it? Well, prevention is your best and only defense. We can't cure it, so prevent it. So how do we prevent it then? Well, your first step is limiting contact between your ducks and wild waterfowl. You should be doing that anyway. The number of things your ducks can contract from the wild ducks and geese in your area is absolute insanity. Okay? It absolutely is bonkers how many things your ducks could track in, not just for themselves, but for your chickens and your guineas and your turkeys. Wild waterfowl are teeming with bacteria and viruses. Okay? Do not let them near your birds if you can do anything about it. If you have a pond on your property that wild ducks visit, it might not be safe for your domestic ducks to swim in that pond. Keeping your flock in fenced or covered areas where wild birds can't mingle with them makes a huge difference. We use livestock guardian dogs. They will keep ducks and geese out of our yard. That is a really important biosecurity concern for us. We live literally next to a giant lake. Okay? There are ducks and geese and occasionally swans here all year round. Okay? A lot of them migrate south for the winter, yes, but there are a couple of breeds that stick around and you'll see them in the winter. That's not good. So we use the dogs, okay? We use the dogs specifically to keep our yard clear of wild waterfowl. That's one of their jobs. So keep the wild waterfowl away from your domestic ducks. So the next big step is sanitation. Wash and disinfect equipment regularly. Don't share feeders, buckets, or tools between flocks. Always think about your own boots and clothing. If you've ever been in an area where waterfowl gather, change your footwear before going into your duck pen. Trust me, you stepped in something. We've all stepped in goose poop. Okay? Clean your shoes or change them. Preferably both. It might seem like a small step, but it's one of the simplest ways to stop this virus from hitching a ride into your flock. Quarantining new birds before adding them to your flock is another important measure. Ducks coming from other farms might look healthy, but they could be carrying this virus or another silently. Giving them a few weeks in a separate pen helps ensure they aren't bringing in anything unwanted. 30 feet for 30 days. 30 feet for 30 days, every animal that comes onto the farm does not come within 30 feet of a similar species, just to avoid transmitting stuff, because we don't want our chickens to get sick because we were stupid about bringing in a duck. So stress management is also a part of prevention. Stressed ducks are more likely to shed latent virus or become sick if exposed. Provide good nutrition, adequate space, clean water, and proper shelter. Reducing overcrowding and keeping the environment calm and healthy makes your ducks less vulnerable. So keep everyone chilled. Now, about vaccines. Vaccines for duck viral enteritis do exist, yes, but they're not always available to small farmers. In fact, I would hazard a guess if you were to ask, your area probably doesn't provide them for backyard bird keepers. Okay? They're probably in your area only available for large commercial flocks. Where they are available, they're typically given to ducks after a couple weeks of age, and they might need to be repeated annually, especially in breeder flocks. Vaccines can be helpful in large operations or in areas with active outbreaks, but they don't replace good biosecurity. Even vaccinated flocks need careful management to stay safe because no vaccine's 100%. And again, you can ask your vet if that's even available in your area. It's likely not. So you're kind of on your own with this one. Now, let's imagine the worst case scenario. You might notice sudden deaths in your flock and symptoms like bloody diarrhea or nasal discharge. What do? Isolate your flock as much as you can. Stop all movement in and out. No visitors, no borrowing equipment, no swapping birds, and call a vet. Duck viral enteritis is a reportable disease in some areas, not all, and that means it's so contagious and so well known in your area that they need to stop the spread. the way to do that best is to find out if that's even what your flock has. Okay? So what you need to do in this case is the birds that have passed, you can get a necropsy done on one of them. Maybe it's not duck viral enteritis. You won't know unless you check. Okay? But what if it's confirmed? What can you do? Well, you can close your flock, meaning no birds in or out, see who survives, and then do not introduce new birds and do not sell any birds. Okay? Let that flock live out its life. Once they've all passed, you clean the coop, leave it empty for a few months, and then start again. Now, that's not an option for everyone. Some people make a living with their backyard flocks. What do you do in that case? Well, if it's confirmed, don't do anything until you've confirmed something, okay? Don't act rashly. But if it's confirmed to be duck viral enteritis, well, if you absolutely cannot afford to close your flock and have no in or outs for what could be years if your flock is young, then you might opt to cull, okay? You might opt to basically depopulate the flock and then do a thorough cleaning and disinfecting, and then maybe you'll just have no birds for a few months as opposed to not being able to introduce or sell birds for years potentially. It's a hard reality, but you can't sell birds with this virus. Okay, you need to keep them contained, so you can't let them free range on your property anymore because they're going to spread the virus. And you don't want this one you don't want spreading. Okay, this one is not benign. Duck viral enteritis can be horrific. So you're going to have to lock up your birds and keep them separated from wild birds and other birds for potentially years. Okay, if they're young. I mean, if your duck's only 2, 3 when this flares up, you could be doing this for a while. Ducks can live to like 10 or 12. So a couple of our ducks are getting up there. But you're going to have to make a choice because you have to stop the spread of the virus somehow. And I will never judge anyone for opting to cull their flock because some people do make a living off of their backyard flock. If we had it, we would isolate our ducks in a separate coop and we would lock them up and we would always tend to them last so that we didn't spread it to anyone else. And we would let them live out their lives, as long or as short as that might be. That may not be an option for you. So again, you have to make the best choice based on your own circumstances. Okay? And again, is there a vaccine? Yeah. Is it common? No. So prevention's the best you can do, and then dealing with it if it hits your flock. Hopefully it doesn't. Duck viral enteritis is one of those diseases that duck keepers hope they never see, but it's also one of the most important ones to know about. By understanding how it spreads, what it looks like, and how to protect against it, you're already taking the biggest step toward keeping your flock safe. Remember, prevention is everything. Keep wild birds out, keep your pens clean, manage stress, and stay vigilant. Okay? Pay attention. If you notice a whole bunch of relatively young, healthy birds die, don't assume it's nothing. Okay? Deal with it. Now, that is about it for us today at Anderson Acres. Have you ever faced illness in your flock, or do you have questions about setting up biosecurity on your farm? We're pretty into biosecurity here. It's one of the reasons we don't have massive illness when a lot of other keepers do. But drop a comment below and share your own experiences. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.